Most people walk through life blind.
They never realize that these 50 psychological triggers are being used on them every single day.
But after this, you won't be most people anymore. Okay, let's start with the social playbook. So our brains are kind of wired for shortcuts. Number one, we automatically trust people who are like us. It's an ancient safety signal. Two, we're actually more drawn to people we have to win over. That little bit of effort makes the connection feel more earned. Three, the halo effect is absolutely real. Our brain just assumes good-looking people have it all together. And number four, just being seen around a lot makes people like you more. It's called the mere exposure effect. Familiarity literally equals safety to our primal brain.
You know, it's often less about what you say and way more about what you do. A real smile, one that actually crinkles the eyes, builds instant trust. We are hardwired to spot the fakes. Then there's the chameleon effect. If you subtly copy someone's posture, you're telling their subconscious brain, hey, we're on the same team. Eye contact is a balancing act. Get it right and you create a bond. Hold it too long and you trigger a threat response. And here's the ultimate character test. We judge people most by how they treat someone they don't have to be nice to. Like a waiter, it reveals everything.
So how do you become unforgettable? Well, for starters, a little mystery goes a long way. Our brains obsess over puzzles we can't solve. Now, if you're already seen as highly competent, making a small mistake, like spilling coffee on yourself, actually makes you more likable. That's the pratfall effect. Here's a wild one. Take someone on a date to a scary movie or a roller coaster. Their brain might actually mistake the adrenaline rush of fear for attraction. And finally, we are all suckers for feeling special. When we feel like someone specifically chose us, our ego lights up and we can't help but like them for it.
All right, now for a few persuasion classics. A light, super brief touch on the arm can create a subconscious connection, making it just a little harder for someone to say no. We're also fundamentally wired to fear losing something more than we want to gain something. That's the scarcity principle in action. And here's a totally counterintuitive one called the Ben Franklin effect. If you ask someone for a small favor, their brain has to justify why it helped you, and it often concludes, well, I must like this person.
Okay, so we've covered the everyday social stuff. Now we're going into darker territory. This is the Manipulator's Toolkit. Pay close attention because these are the tricks you need to spot to protect yourself.
Let's start with the basics of the con. The reciprocity trap is when someone gives you a free gift that comes with invisible strings attached, making you feel like you owe them. In any negotiation, the first number dropped becomes an anchor that pulls the entire conversation in its direction. And we're all guilty of confirmation bias. We love information that proves we're right, and we ignore anything that suggests we're wrong. This gets supercharged by the bandwagon effect, that deep-seated instinct to just follow the crowd because, hey, if everyone's doing it, it must be safe.
This is where things get really dangerous. The worst manipulators don't just want to persuade you, they want to break your reality. We have a shocking tendency to obey authority figures, people in uniforms or with fancy titles, even when our gut screams that it's wrong. Gaslighting is a truly vicious tactic where someone chips away at your memory, making you doubt yourself so that they become your only source of truth. And you know how sleazy salespeople talk a mile a minute? That's on purpose. It's called cognitive overload. They talk so fast your brain just wants to agree to make it stop.
Okay, I want to pause on this one for a second because it's so common and so destructive. Love bombing. It feels amazing at first, this intense wave of affection and praise, but it's a trap. It's designed to get you addicted to that feeling. Then, once you're hooked, they pull it away, forcing you to do whatever they want to get your fix. It is a massive red flag.
Now, let's talk about how our own emotions get turned into weapons against us. People with dark triad traits can be incredibly charming because they see emotions as tools. They might pretend to be vulnerable, mirroring your pain, not to connect with you, but to get you to spill your secrets, which they'll use against you later. Guilt is another favorite weapon, playing on your deep-seated fear of being seen as a bad person.
Intermittent reinforcement is the slot machine effect. The unpredictable rewards keep you hooked, which is why toxic relationships are so addictive. If you control the story, you control the person. Do you want to clean your room now or in 5 minutes? See what they did there? You feel like you have a choice, but both options lead to the same result. Abusers will try to isolate their victims from friends and family because that cuts off any outside reality checks. And here's a real glitch in our wiring. We are programmed to trust the most confident person in the room, not necessarily the most correct one. Over time, a skilled manipulator will literally rewrite history, retelling stories over and over until their version becomes the one you remember.
And here are the final traps you need to know. Ever hear a nasty comment followed by, geez, I was just kidding?
That's Schrodinger's joke. They throw out the insult and wait to see a reaction before deciding if they were serious. Then you have the foot in the door technique. Get someone to agree to a tiny request first, and they're way more likely to agree to a much bigger one later. And remember, your willpower is like a muscle. When you're tired, hungry, or stressed, you're much easier to persuade. And that limited time only sale? That's not about value. It's about creating false urgency to shut down the logical part of your brain.
All right, for our final section, we're turning the lens around. We've seen how others can manipulate us, but now let's look at the built-in glitches, the hidden code that runs inside all of our minds.
This right here explains so much about human conflict. It's one of our biggest hypocrisies. When we mess up, we judge ourselves based on our good intentions. We say, "Oh, I had a bad day," or "I didn't mean it." But when someone else does the exact same thing, we judge them strictly by their actions. They aren't having a bad day. No, they are a bad person. It's a fundamental error in our programming.
Our ego is constantly working to protect us. For instance, something like 90% of drivers think they're better than average, which is, well, you do the math. We crave control so badly we'll push elevator closed door buttons that we know aren't even connected. And let's be honest, we all feel that tiny secret spark of pleasure. It's called Schadenfreude, when someone we're competing with stumbles. But here's a little bit of good news. That thing you're insecure about, nobody else is paying nearly as much attention to it as you are. That's the spotlight effect, and it's mostly in your head.
You know, our brains definitely have a dark side. We're wired to avoid pain, which is why we often prefer a comforting lie over a hard truth. We even tell tiny lies all day, like saying "I'm fine," just to keep society running smoothly. This gets way darker online, where the distance of a screen can switch off our empathy and make cruelty feel consequence-free. And it's all powered by our negativity bias. Your brain is like Velcro for bad experiences and Teflon for good ones, which is why one insult can completely erase 10 compliments.
Our minds are just not as reliable as we think. The sunk cost fallacy is what keeps us in bad jobs or bad relationships, just because we've already invested so much time. It's our brain hating to admit it made a mistake. We are so terrified of being bored that in one study, people chose to give themselves an electric shock rather than just sit alone with their thoughts. Think about that. And maybe the most unsettling fact of all, your memory is not a recording, it's a story. And every single time you remember something, you change it just a little bit.
And that brings us to the end, to our deepest, most primal programming. Nearly half of what you do every day isn't a conscious choice. It's an automated habit loop designed to save brain power. We practice moral hypocrisy constantly, viewing our own shady actions as necessary evils while seeing the exact same behavior in others as just plain evil. And finally, the deepest truth. Loneliness causes real, measurable pain. It lights up the same parts of your brain as a physical injury, because for our ancestors, being cut off from the tribe was a literal death sentence.
So, there you have it, 50 triggers, the hidden code that's running in the background of our lives. The question is, what do you do now?
Well, the answer is don't survive alone. If you want to really understand these hidden behaviors that rule your life and protect yourself from them, then join our tribe.
Click subscribe and let's become detectives of the human mind together.